My name is Tasha Elder, and welcome to my senior thesis project, Anwyn. It's a supernatural western with elements of comedy. The book itself will take place in 3 larger segments, first following Salvahi and Eki, 2 demons who are concerned for their friend Atali as she attempts to make her way to Retuse, the realm of the humans, because of a human named Austin that she's fascinated with. The second segment will feature Atali on Retuse as she discovers betrayal and builds a revenge plot. The third segment is split between 2 points of view as she is enacting the plot with another human named Colt, as well as following Salvahi and Eki in the demon realm as they're trying to, help their friend out. The reading I'm about to give takes place in the first segment. Hitali has already begun expressing interest in Austin, and Salvahi and Eki travel into dangerous lands to talk to a banished demon named Azur, in hopes of attaining knowledge to prevent Hitali from following along the same path that led to Azur's banishment, as he had chosen his attachment to a human over the demon race. So, hope you enjoy. You don't think she's starting to form an attachment, do you? Eki asked Salvahi on one of the increasingly frequent days they opted out of watching the projections. Of course not. No way would our uptight, stubborn friend form an attachment. Not when she has been so disdainful of the way they seem to control fate, and especially not to a human, being that she didn't even respect before Austin came along. So he said with more confidence than he actually felt. Besides, she won't even be able to complete the formation without interacting with the human face-to-face. Do you really think it's likely that she'll take the time off of work? She's a workaholic, and you know she's still trying to prove that she deserved the promotion. I don't care how she acts. Eki knew this to be true. She had a sinking feeling that Hitali would not be deterred from the current dimensional barrier to her interest, nor by her previous drive to prove her abilities to her boss. It was not in any way impossible for travel between the worlds to happen. It took significant amounts of energy, and one willingly sacrificed access to their demon-born gifts when traveling to the human realm Retuse, but Hitali would be far from the first to attempt to do so. With the obvious case of Azur and his attachment to a human aside, many took time off to explore other realms, with Retuse being of particular interest due to the plethora of shows that originated from there. Many wanted to see the famous sites of battles, or the birth sites of long-lasting stars such as Austin. Even more worrying than the ability to travel was the fact that Hitali almost never took a day off, and thus had many vacation days saved that she could use to take an extended foray into the human realm. Eki had a sinking feeling that for once, something had caught her interest deeply enough that she would actually cash in on the saved dates. What if she isn't deterred, though? What if she leaves? You know how stubborn she is when she sets her mind to something? She seems like she might be heading that way with Austin, Eki asked. We'll just have to cross that bridge when we get to it, Key. Salvahi shrugged helplessly. Not that I think we will get to that bridge. Not that there's even any bridge to get to, since she's not interested in Austin that way. Eki didn't even spare a glance as Salvahi kept rambling in his bridge metaphor and paddling down his ocean of denial. Eki knew her best friend well enough to know that Hitali was in for Austin, all the way, and also knew that Salvahi realized this too, and that's why he's so set on denying it. He was never great at accepting hard-to-swallow truths, but Eki was. So she began to think of what the ideal plan of action to perhaps forestall the inevitable would be. The one answer that she kept coming back to did not make her happy. What if we talk to Azur? Eki suggested hesitantly, cutting Salvahi off. While there were other demons around that had formed attachments before, it seemed important to hear from someone who had been in the exact situation as Hitali, and Azur was the only one with any experience with human attachments. There was a risk, though. Azur had been banished, which meant any contact with him was strictly not allowed. To add to the complications, the reason he had been banished was for choosing his attachment to a human over the other demons. While no one would punish him for being dedicated to his attached, and in fact he would be shunned if he betrayed them, as loyalty was a very valued trait in demon culture. When his attached died and ended up here, Azur refused to interrogate the human. He went against protocol and tried to help his human escape, albeit unsuccessfully due to devastating results. The human was punished far more harshly for causing the abandonment of one of their best interrogators, and Azur was restrained and banished for a few centuries. Until the allotted time ended, the only allowed contact was with the demons decided to bring him food every few months, and even then they weren't allowed to talk to him. Talk to Azur, Salvahi mumbled in a daze. I thought I was the one that was supposed to come up with these kinds of stupid ideas. You're supposed to be the voice of reason. I'm trying to be. I'm really worried that Hitali is going to end up attached, and you know how she is about loyalty. I'm afraid she'll go down the same path as Azur and put Austin above any others. I don't want to see her forsake us, do you? You know I don't want to see that, Sylvia hissed back. But even if we somehow manage to get to where Azer is, how is he even supposed to help us anyway? Clearly his attachment didn't work out for him. Are you forgetting that? Of course not. The fact that his attachment didn't work out is exactly the point. He could tell us where he went wrong and help us to create fail-safes so the same doesn't happen to Tali. Please, Vohi, this is the only way I can see us getting any help. Why can't we just go to one of the other attached? Vohi asked desperately. I'm also worried that bringing up concerns about Hitali would cause a closer watch and harsher judgment of any of her actions. I'm the most excited I've seen her about something in a long time, and I don't want it ruined in case we're wrong. Since no one is allowed to talk with him anyways, who would Azer tell? Can't believe this. Can't believe I'm considering this, Vohi groaned. You don't have to come if you don't want to, Eki said. But I'm going no matter what you decide. It's a cheap shot and you know it, Ki. When Hitali eventually finds out about this, and you know she will, she'd flame me apart if she knew I didn't go with you, Vohi said. Two friends exchanged laughs at the thought. When this all goes to shit, you take full responsibility for the idea. Fine, it's fine. Let's get planning, Eki said with determination in her eyes. They decided to head over at night when most would be at home, settling down for the evening. It was of course especially important for Hitali to be preoccupied, but she had recently been telling them that the latest information about Austin pointed towards him doing a major raid that night. There had been a new group out for his blood, and this one posed enough of a threat that he couldn't wait for them to move first. Thus he had chosen to set an ambush for them. The previous nights filled with him setting the traps and laying the trail in such a way that they would have no choice but to walk straight into it. While the two demons felt slightly guilty at the disappointment in her eyes when they said they would miss out, relief at having a guaranteed excuse to not be caught out by Hitali soothed the shame. The cover of night wasn't just useful for the fact that many would be settling down. It also allowed for less opportunities of being caught sneaking out of scene. Though no curfew existed, the direction they needed to head in holds nothing but wastelands would be viewed as suspicious. The pastel-colored sky was not ideal, as their shadows could still stretch away from them. The lightly hued night was preferable to the harsh greens and yellows that made up their sky in daytime, stretching shadows far beyond what they could be able to reasonably keep hidden. They determined the best route to take largely due to Selvahi's inclination to gossip. Through his many conversations with old classmates, co-workers, and his wife Malatu's friends, he had discovered where many of the night workers would be. It was amazing how much information his Wendigo attachment knew. The first course of action would be to escape the apartment complex that Eki lived in, deemed more suitable both due to its proximity to the city boundaries, as well as a Doulahan wife not inclined to spilling any information about their plans. While Kaelin was a perfectly behaved citizen now, she'd been far less so for large chunks of her life and would think nothing of their foray into unknown territory. Besides that, Kaelin had also been around enough of Eki, Selvahi, and Hitali while they had been discussing equally shady and not well-planned ideas that included going to places they weren't necessarily allowed to be at. Though escape was a strong word for leaving the apartment complex. More like they walked out of the relatively small building, only 10 floors, waving at any tenants they came across. So close to Eki's home, acting suspicious and trying to avoid others would raise far more questions than pretending to take a stroll with a friend, which they did fairly often anyways. Once they stepped into the muggy night, at least we'll have experienced good weather before getting banished for forever for attempting this, Sylvahi quipped, and started stalking towards the wall surrounding Siud, they began to act more alert. Sylvahi had found out where the likely location of Azer was due to a connection with the guard that had escorted the other demon there. It was the first time that Eki was inclined to acknowledge Sylvahi's frequent gossip as a good thing. She had no plans to say that out loud, of course, because then he would just be insufferable about it for the foreseeable future. But keeping the thoughts in her mind should be safe enough. At least she assumed it was. Sometimes it was difficult to know with him. While it was not uncommon for demons to know each other's abilities, as they were typically obvious and came up in everyday life, Sylvahi delighted in keeping his two friends in the dark about his exact abilities. Thus far, guesses have included premonition, enhanced physical ability, enhanced senses, as well as many more less likely. The more common ones have to do with uncanny reaction time to unexpected events. The possibility of multiple powers was not unheard of either, though very rare. Besides, Eki had a feeling that if Sylvahi had had more than one ability, he wouldn't be able to keep quiet about it. Temptation of the thrill he'd feel driving him crazy about his uniqueness would have long ago outweighed the joy he obviously felt whenever the topic of his abilities joined the circuit of conversation again. He particularly enjoyed her own guesses as she became flustered with every wrong guess. She had become accustomed to knowing most things, especially about her two friends. Without her, Sylvahi most likely would have already shared his skills with Hitali, Surprisingly reacted far less whenever she guessed incorrect. Eki supposed Tully enjoyed the mystery and the harmless nature of it. But despite the information that had been gathered and their preparation in terms of proximity to where they needed to be, it still took the two of them several careful hours of creeping about to clear Seward far enough to not fear being spotted. The first challenge came 2 blocks down from the apartment building. As soon as the two exited the residential area, they had to stay in the shadows of large lit signs. Some advertised upcoming programs, such as Austin's Big Fight that night, while others stayed throughout the year, such as Andrew's Big Top Circus. Come see the Demogorgons in action, or Meet the Meat, choose your meal before the murder. Mundane slogans that Eki didn't even notice anymore. The only noticeable thing about them now was the harsh light that they cast upon the streets. So while he and Eki carefully slunk through the shadows of the billboards, passing by a few other shady individuals that they had a mutual, unspoken agreement with to feign ignorance. Adrenaline pumped through Eki's body as they came upon an area that was filled with neon light without reprieve. Though they had begun to leave the city proper, with its many buildings providing shadowy cover, but many eyes along with them, they had begun to enter an industrial district, large buildings of red and purple with too much open space between them, posing their second major challenge. Luckily, from nights adventuring with the three of them, Eki and Silvogi had already had a plan for how to handle the open space. Every so often did a guard pass by, about 60% of them being demons and the rest being vampires. While not the easiest of targets, demons were easier than vampires to deal with. Eki had the ability to influence others' minds to varying degrees. It generally worked on short-lived or non-magical creatures, such as werewolves or humans. But the difficulty of the influence grew with other species. From experience in an ill-advised night where friends narrowly avoided discovery from vampires, she learned that her own glamour gave their minds a natural resistance to her influence, causing less certainty in their persuasion. Luckily for them, there weren't really that many close calls, only one ghoul that was a little bit rocky. But she pulled away fast enough to remain unnoticed, and they just waited in trepidation as the ghoul continued its path for the next demon. After that, they reached the wall at the end of the journey, allowing a breath of fresh air as the exits and entrances weren't monitored very well, as well as more formality than anything else. The city had been under attack in the past, but enjoyed peace for the recent millennium with the wall a long-lasting holdover. The climb over the top stressed their muscles, but handholds were not hard to locate due to the aged nature and the deterioration that had taken place, and they successfully dropped to the other side. The plains they dropped into were beautiful. Sweeping verdant hills packed like clay with a pastel-swirled sky above it. Very odd place for banishment, Eki thought to herself. In fact, she wondered why this had not been converted into a vacation spot or sold as an expensive real estate location. As they continued walking, it only became more clear that they were missing something. Standing atop the first hill revealed the land rolling out towards the horizon, with a crystallized reddish-purplish-orange source of light, creating long shadows from the forest in the distance. That was their destination, deceptively far away. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it.